The top stories for the hour. President Taye said Ethiopia's wheat self-sufficiency proves Africa's path to food security. And 46th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council of the African Union commenced. Hello and welcome to EBC World, the voice of Pan-Africanism. It's me, Magdalena Suyum, with the daily updates. President Taye Askeselase says Ethiopia has successfully transitioned from a wheat importer to a self-sufficient producer through effective implementation of irrigation, mechanization, and climate-resilient seeds, coupled with effective agricultural practice. The president urged African nations to scale up a promising agricultural initiative, investing in technology and infrastructure, and strengthen collaborative efforts to combat hunger and climate change. Goshu Melissa reports.
Ethiopia is hosting an international conference on irrigation and climate-resilient production, bringing together experts, policymakers, and development partners. In his keynote speech, President Taye Askeselase remarked, Ethiopia has shifted from a wheat importer to a self-sufficient producer through effective agricultural practices and implementation.
As part of fulfilling our commitment to enhance resilience on climate variability, we partnered with the African Development Bank to produce an improved climate-resilient wheat variety seed. In a very short period, we have transitioned from a wheat importer to a self-sufficient producer. This achievement signifies Africa's untapped potential to achieve food sovereignty through strategic investment in irrigation, mechanization, and comprehensive agriculture reforms. It sends a clear and powerful message. Africa can indeed feed itself.
The president urged African nations to scale up promising agricultural initiatives, invest in technology and infrastructure, and strengthen collaborative efforts to combat hunger and climate change.
The challenges of climate change and food security loom large, demanding that we meet them head-on with unwavering resolve and innovative solutions. We need to scale up investment and financing in irrigation farming. To secure our agriculture future, we need massive investment, especially in infrastructure. In the face of weakening multilateralism and collective responsibility, as for example seen in the Baku Climate Summit, agricultural investment, especially in infrastructure, is indeed imperative for Africans.
Ethiopia's Minister of Irrigation and Lowlands Abraham Belay called for urgent action to strengthen climate-resilient agriculture through irrigation, innovation, and inclusive policies. He emphasized that Africa must seize the opportunity to transform its agricultural sector amid growing climate threats.
Africa holds immense yet underutilized irrigation potential. Ethiopia's national wheat flagship program has demonstrated how targeted irrigation investments can achieve food self-sufficiency. With innovative policies, strategies, technology, and financing, we can transform African agriculture. For climate resilient food production to thrive, we must develop policies tailored to our local realities. Those policies should prioritize land and water rights, farmer-led irrigation development, and adoption of climate-smart technologies.
For her part, Josefa Luenel Kaurasako highlighted Africa's urgent need for a resilient agriculture system.
Majority of African farmers are small-scale farmers practicing rain-fed agriculture, which is highly vulnerable to climate change. So this nexus between agriculture and climate change, it's very important because we need to have a system, an agro-food system that is resilient and sustainable if we want to feed our population on the continent.
The conference, which commenced today, will run for 3 days, and African nations are expected to share significant experience among each other.
Ethiopia.
And now moving on to news related to the 2025 AU Summit. The 46th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council of the African Union has officially commenced in Addis Ababa, the AU's headquarters. This session is being held under the AU's 2025 theme, Justice for Africans and People of African Descendants through Reparation, which will be officially launched by the AU Assembly. The two-day meeting has brought together foreign affairs ministers and senior government officials from AU member countries to discuss critical issues such as development, peace and security. One of the key items on the agenda is the election of 6 new AU Commission commissioners who will oversee crucial portfolio including agriculture, rural development, education, infrastructure and energy, peace and security and other thematic areas. Ethiopia's Foreign Affairs Minister Gideon Timotheos says African Union member state political will and robust partnership will ensure the successful implementation of Agenda 2063. The Foreign Minister made this remark at the opening of the 46th Ordinary Session of the AU Executive Council in Addis Ababa. Meanwhile, African Union Commission Chairperson Musa Faki Mohammed also indicated that the African Union is undertaking all-round reforms. Shagaya Matau has more.
The 46th Ordinary Session of the African Union Executive Council has kicked off today in Addis Ababa, drawing foreign affairs ministers and senior government officials from AU member nations to discuss important issues like peace, security and development in the continent. Ethiopia's Foreign Affairs Minister Gideon Timotheos underscored the importance of unity and solidarity, noting the need for collective action to address global challenges. He also pointed out that African Union member states' political will and robust partnership would ensure the implementation of African Union Agenda 2063.
The vision outlined in Africa's Agenda 2063 holds great promise for our continent's prosperity. Realizing this immense potential requires more than just strategic frameworks. It requires strong political will, effective coordination, and robust partnerships among member states and regional economic communities. Only through collective efforts can we ensure the successful implementation of Agenda 2063 and transform Africa into the Africa we want. This requires us to strengthen our efforts to realize Africa's flagship projects, to unlock our growth and prosperity potential, and consolidate on the progress we made in creating a continent-wide free trade area.
The foreign minister also stated that multilateralism is both a choice and a necessity for Africa, as most Africa's challenges require multilateral solutions.
As we gather here today, we are confronting the reality of turbulent changes that are severely challenging multilateralism. For Africa and the rest of the global South, multilateralism is both a choice and a necessity. It is a choice because we believe in collaboration, consensus building, and partnership. It is a necessity because most of the challenges we face are global and their solutions are found in multilateral frameworks. From climate change, environmental pollution and degradation to desertification, biodiversity, pandemics, and other global health issues, all require multilateral solutions. We must thus redouble our efforts to strengthen the United Nations, the African Union, and other African regional bodies. They are indispensable for the health and well-being of current and future generations.
The chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mohamed, for his part stated that the African Union is undergoing extensive reforms, noting the remarkable achievements registered in economic development, agriculture and social sectors over the past years. He also underscored that the Union has been undertaking all-round reforms, stressing the need for much efforts to enhance peace and security matters of the continent. Claver Gatete, UN Under-Secretary General and Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, underscored that establishing African-led credit agencies and strengthening AFCFTA are vital to boost economic growth.
So it is imperative to establish an African-led credit rating agency to ensure fair assessments reflect Africa's true economic realities rather than outdated risk perceptions. Second, the African Continental Free Trade Area is a game changer. With a market of 1.5 billion people and a combined GDP of over $3 trillion US, it presents an unparalleled opportunity to boost industrialization and trade within the continent. It is therefore essential to fully harness the CFTA's potential to accelerate investments in infrastructure and manufacturing to reduce dependency on external markets. It is also paramount that we develop regional value chains to ensure that Africa produces and processes its own raw materials and creates jobs and industries that benefit Africans.
The Council, during its today's session, will discuss critical issues of the continent under the agreed AU theme for 2025, Justice for African and People of African Descent through Reparations.
The African Union, AU, has called for reparation for Africans and people of African descent at the 46th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council. In the session, the need to address historical injustice stemming from the transatlantic slave trade and colonial exploitation highlighted. Claver Gatete, United Nations Under-Secretary General and Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, emphasized that these historical injustices left Africa with persistent inequalities embedded in global financial system and trade structure. He presented stark economic disparities, including Africa holding 30% of the world's mineral reserves, but accounting for less than 3% of global trade. To address these inequalities, Gatete proposed a 5-point action plan focusing on reforming global financial system, boosting intra-Africa trade through the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, and ensuring value addition to African resource. He also stressed the importance of strengthening ties with the Africa diaspora and promoting African integration for shared prosperity. The session concluded with the unified commitment for African leaders to pursue justice, reparation, and economic independence for Africa and its diaspora.
What is Africa? Is it the wildlife, the beautiful coasts, thriving cities? It is more than that. It is the people. Our 55 countries have many things in common. Our cultures bind us together. They give us strength and identity. They make us proud. By sharing our knowledge and working together, we're building a new Africa that's driven by investments, by game-changing infrastructure projects, and using transformative technology to change the way we live, work, and conduct business. Using our largest natural resource, our vast arable land, we are making advances in agriculture, developing new industries, creating jobs, and improving livelihoods. Together, we are moving forward on economic integration. By consolidating Africa's significant internal market to foster trade within the continent and with the world, Africa is open for business. We are building the Africa we want. So, what is the continent of the future? The answer is Africa.
The 2024 Africa Visa Openness Index underscores the urgent need for enhanced mobility to unlock Africa's economic potential. On the sideline of the 46th Ordinary Session, the African Union and the African Development Bank, AFDB, co-hosted a high-level strategic dialogue focused on accelerating visa-free movement across the continent. The dialogue highlighted successful visa-free policies and discussed challenges to implementation aiming to boost regional integration. The latest Africa Visa Openness Index report reveals progress, with 17 countries improving their visa openness score over the past year. Notably, 28% of intra-Africa travel is now visa-free, up from 20% in 2016, though 47% still requires visa from departure. The top performers, Benin, Gambia, Rwanda, and Seychelles, continue to lead, whereas Sierra Leone and Angola have seen a most significant improvement, with Sierra Leone's scoring rising by 62%, moving it from 22nd to 13th place. The report emphasized that to meet the global of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the AFCFTA, and boost economic growth, greater mobility is essential. It calls for swift action to implement visa-free entry for African citizens, urging countries to ratify the AU Protocol on Free Movement and allow visa-free travel for AFCFTA business. That's all we had for today's update, but before I go, let's have a recap of the top stories once again. President Taye said Ethiopia's wheat self-sufficient proves Africa's path to food security. And the 46th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council of the African Union commenced. Thank you for tuning in to EBC World, the voice of Pan-Africanism. It was me, Magdalena. See you with the daily updates. Goodbye.